Buenos, how are ye? Welcome back to the Candlelit Tales podcast, where we tell Irish mythology set to original music. My name is Sorcha. I am one half of the sibling storytelling duo that came up with this company. And in this episode, we are continuing our series on the Fianna, which started way back in episode 254. So you can go back there and catch all the way up if you feel so inclined. And if you are caught up, buckle in, because this one starts a new mini arc of the pursuit of Diarmuid and Gráinne with the proposal, as told by me and Aaron, actually. If you'd like to listen to our reflections and chats, if you'd like to support this podcast, you can join our Candlelit crew by following the links in the description below. But for now, hey Aaron, let's tell these people a story.
The wind blew through Fionn's grey hair as he looked at the setting sun lingering across the landscape. The Boyne Valley, the beautiful landscape where the Boyne River flows softly and gently around Brún na Boinne and the ancient landscape, where Fionn would go and hike through the forests until he got to a certain ledge, looking down at the fast-flowing river below. Every year he swore he would come here. As he walked this year, he felt heavy limbs move, an ache across his back. The gleaming sun in the sky was blinding his eyes. The glimmer on the river passing below sent a shock through him. Had it been this high before? Was his heart beating in his chest capable to send that burst of blood through the muscles he needed to make this leap? For this leap, this feat, was his way to prove that he was still at his best. Every year he would leap across this river, across the valley, avoiding a deadly plunge into the river below, and landing to prove he was still in his brilliance and capable of any feat the Fianna would demand. The leader of the Fianna was as strong-willed, maybe not quite as strong as he was once before. He noticed a slight tremor in his hand as the grey hair came across his eyes once more. He begrudgingly tied it back, took a deep breath to settle his nerves. He chastised himself mentally for feeling fear and afraid. He was Fionn McCool after all. And if he was to plunge to his death today, so be it. He would go out with one last blast. But he wouldn't let this happen, not on this day. For although he was aging and feeling weaker than once before, he would not let this day be his last. As he took that breath, rested his muscles, as he took that leap once more, he vaulted himself across the river, and landing on the opposite edge, slight slip underneath. He grinned from ear to ear. A black bird flew past him, cawing. In defiance, he stared at the wings flapping in the wind. He was still the leader of the Fianna.
While Fionn McCool was away testing his body against the fast-flowing waters of the River Boyne, there was a small gathering in the woods. A small few of the Fianna, loyal, brave and brilliant as they all were, had gathered to discuss a favourite topic, not just for them but for anyone. They gathered to talk about their leader. For Fionn McCool was the greatest captain the Fianna had ever known, but that did not mean that he was without fault. And the faults of Fionn had been more noticeable of late. Irritability, his harshness, and his criticism, coming through strongly and more strongly. A man who had once been an uplifter of all who followed him was now more and more taking the role of the detractor, criticising, nitpicking, It was becoming noticeably worse. And it was his son, Oisín, who said it first.
We need to talk about him. He's getting worse and worse. He's not the leader we need to see us through this dark time in Ireland. And I hate to say it, but I'm the only one who can. Because if we leave this going, I fear that the Fianna could rip itself in two if the leadership keeps on going the way it is.
Coillte cleared his throat. That's perilous close now. Not just insubordination, but to treachery. We've all sworn oaths, Oisín.
Look, Coillte, I'm not suggesting that we rise up against him and take arms against my
You
father.
better not.
Of course I'm bleeding not. Now, lads, I don't think we want to be starting any mutinies now. Calm it down. All you need to do is talk to the man, surely. Sure, Oisín, you're his son. I don't want to bring it up to him, but maybe you could give him a bit of a talking to and get him back to his old self.
I don't think that's realistic, Nisha said. I don't think you can talk someone into being different than they are. I think Fionn now is as Fionn is now. It's not a question of convincing him to be like he was 20 years ago. Or longer. We all know he's lived a long, long life. His grandson, Oscar, of the many feats, is a warrior now. And there's few enough grandfathers in the Fianna. It's not a matter of convincing him to be different. We're talking about succession.
They all looked at one another, queasy at the idea of now suggesting to Fionn McCool that someone would take the leadership off of him. This silence lingered for a while, until Diarmuid looked at Oisín. Ah, come on. I mean, of course it'd be you, his son. Sure, we'd all stand behind you. There you are now, the shining light of his eye. He'd support this, surely, wouldn't he? He looked to Coillte for support.
Would he? And your man off doing poetry half the time?
I mean, maybe before the next cliff jump, you could go down with him to the Boyne and father-son activity and maybe talk about...
No, just if Oisín brings that up with Fionn by the ranks of the River Boyne, Oisín will be in the drink pretty quick.
Oisín glared at Coillte. I'm not going to go near the bleeding Boyne. But if anyone should be taking up this leadership, clearly, Coillte, it'd be one of the old guard. You're one of his trusted. Surely you should maybe do this, seeing as he's lost it and he's not fit to lead the Fianna anymore.
So, the conversation now is, the man's too old to run the Fianna, and your solution, Oisín, is to put another old man in his place.
Well, I mean, somebody more capable, somebody more level-headed, somebody more tactful.
I have no interest in running the Fianna.
Nisha smiled.
Running? You're good at running away from your responsibilities.
Oisín glared at Coillte. Coillte snarled at Nisha. Nisha was about to say something that would have pushed it over the edge when Diarmuid spoke. Take a breath. Now, all of you. Aren't we here to save the Fianna, not to rip it apart? Come on, we're here to support one another, bolster each other, not to point out each other's weaknesses. Sure enough, the man isn't capable to lead us anymore. We can all see that now. But for all of us to start fighting is not the solution. And we need to come together to find a solution.
You mean a leader who can make sure that everybody doesn't start tearing each other apart at the drop of a hat?
Yeah.
That all the strong personalities of the Fianna can pull together in the same direction? Someone who can come in as a mediator when things are getting heated. Is that what you're talking about, Diarmuid?
And somebody who is neither Clan Bashna nor Clan Morna, said Oisin.
And somebody who everybody respects, even if they're grudging about it.
No, lads, I don't know about that. Sure, I'm no leader. I wouldn't want that.
You are a leader. You know you're a leader. You're a captain of the Fianna. There's no reason you couldn't be the captain. If we manage it right and carefully and don't get Fionn McCool's back up.
The conversation went on like that, long into the wee hours of the night, with many drink by the fire's side as the embers blazed and dwindled down. But as the darkness in the sky began to lighten and brighten with the rising of the sun in the spring air, the birds began to tweet. They looked around, and they had finally come to some form of solution. Fionn McCool could be succeeded by Diarmuid Gráinne if they played their cards right. And as they discussed, Fionn McCool was not happy, not good. And when was he good?
Well, he needs a wife.
You're right. We can't do this while he's still grieving. He's not been the same since Magnus has died. And that's the biggest weight on his heart so far. If we got him cozied up, though, to a young new wife, maybe he'd be a little bit more approachable to the idea.
You know, he always goes through a phase when he's got a new romance. He just doesn't have any interest in the Fianna for a bit. It'd be a good time.
Jeez, sure don't we all do that?
Young wife at home. Didn't the High King have another daughter?
Well, Jez, didn't Alpha nearly break his heart?
Ah, yeah, but I heard the other one is a bit more settled. Alva was too wild for him, but no, her sisters, by the sounds of it, got a level head on her. And besides, hasn't Cormac MacArt recently named his son Carbra as his successor?
Ideal. We could have the banquet, invite the king, have Carbra there too, mention it to him, and sure, once we name a successor and him with the new wife.
Ah, sure, listen, he'll think it's his own idea.
Right. Who's going to Tara?
It should be his son, shouldn't it? Technically, the daughter of a High King was not a Brehon, not a Philip, and not herself a ruler. But all the same, much of Gráinne's life was spent in travel. And it was only those three who officially travelled. Brehons, Fili and Kings. But there was something to having a beautiful king's daughter with you that just made everything a little bit smoother. That was Gráinne's role. That was what she thought of as her job. She could walk into a room where her brother Carbra would have everyone at their throats, and she could raise or lower the temperature just as she liked. She could draw every eye to her. She could distract. She could misdirect. She could charm. And above all, she could ease things. For her father, the High King. For her brother Carbra, who would one day be High King. She was skilled in her role. Her sister Alva had chafed under it, had wanted more freedom, but Gráinne loved the freedom of the roads of Ireland. Being able to go to the houses of any hospitaller in the country, being hosted by kings. Being courted by kings was her least favourite part of it, although that had some benefits. She was not immune to flattery. It was nice to know that one was admired, even if it was a little smothering, to know how consistently one was desired. But on this day she was returning to Tara, after a successful negotiation in Cashel. Well, successful as far as Gráinne was concerned, not that she wasn't leaving behind another broken heart.
He was gorgeous. I mean, what was wrong with this one? Nerissa, her closest handmaiden, was walking beside her as they went along the road away from Cashel. She was stunned once more to see Gráinne's sheer lack of desire for any man offering her hand. And the son of the king of the Aegonach had recently been one to join the long list of men who had been refused by Gráinne. But Nerissa didn't understand particularly why this time.
Nerissa, he was not for me. A provincial king. The son of a provincial king. The son of the king of Munster, but not anywhere near me in terms of rank. You know as well as I do, the Brehons say the best marriage is a marriage of equals. He was not my equal. I am the daughter of a high king. He is the daughter of a provincial king.
And don't the Brehons say that the second best type of marriage is a marriage where the woman has a higher rank than her husband?
I don't settle for second best, Nerissa.
Clearly. What was wrong with the king from Kerry? He was high enough status. He'd have been equal in every way. He was strong, he had lands, he was loyal. What was wrong with him?
Dull, slow-witted. Not the best-looking man I've ever seen. Not that he was deformed or anything, but close. And really, who could live with that accent?
I do suppose the Kerry accent is a bit grating in many ears. All right, well, what is it you're looking for then? What would suit you, Gráinne? I think everyone wants to know now. And I know your father wants you to be married sooner rather than later. After Alva, your sister, has gone off and vanished. So, who would you settle for?
Gráinne sighed. Because there was one. It was a foolish dream, a child's dream, and she had never told it to anyone before, but now, on the road to Tara, for the first time, she told Nerissa. Long, long ago, in Tara, Gráinne had seen a hurling match. A team from the south, boys around her own age, were playing a team from the Midlands, and there was one boy. It was his skill and it was his grace and it was the way that the wind blew the hair back from his forehead, and she saw it was unblemished except for one mark. And it was something about the flaw on the perfection. It was something about the grace of his body. It was something about the harmony of his features. It caught her heart as if in a net and had never let go. And then she said, I know I'm never going to meet a boy from the hurling field, and I know that if I ever did see him again, it wouldn't be the same, but I know I cannot settle for anything less than a man who is as beautiful as me, as powerful as me, and as intelligent as me. I've promised myself at least that.
Nerissa smiled. Well, let's go get you that man then. She threaded her arm into Gráinne's and they skipped along the road until they came to the next hostel as they made their way back to Tara, going to house and keep and lodging to share news, find out what was going along the roads, and everyone was always very eager to host the king's daughter.
When they got back to Tara, it was to news. News for Gráinne, and it had not come by any road, for the bards and the Brehons and the royals travelled the roads, but the Fianna travelled wherever they wished, and that was sometimes on road, and more often than not it was off it. And there was a message there waiting for Gráinne, a proposal from the great captain of the Fianna himself, Fionn McCool, a man famous for his beauty, famous for his intelligence, famous for his power, which rivalled that of her own father. And Nerissa looked directly at Gráinne, and Gráinne could not quite meet her eye.
Well, what do you say to that?
I say, I will marry Fionn McCool. if he is fit.
Great. There's a wedding to prepare for. Let's get packing.